Well, I think we're ready to start the informal discussion with Polymath regarding the proposed 40B comprehensive permit at 269 North Avenue. And just, to start, I would just like to say that the board was requested, the planning board is really just an advisory board in the 40B process. We don't really have standing to make decisions relative to the process. We were asked by the Housing Partnership to have this meeting. And so I guess what I would say is that are you representing the partnership?
Yes.
Or the developer?
Yes.
What I would say is that it would be helpful, I guess, for you to walk us through any changes that you're anticipating that differ from the presentation that the planning board made its comments on initially. I think we're trying to decide, I think, whether there's ground for negotiation on any of the issues that we raised in our initial memorandum relative to this project. And just to read our introductory paragraph, it says that the Weston Planning Board strongly opposes the proposal of Polymath Development LLC for the creation of 5 single-family dwellings for market rate when affordable on North Avenue. The project is proposed as a local initiative project, LIP, and is seeking the support of the Weston Housing Partnership under this program. While the planning board supports the construction of affordable housing in Weston, the project should fit seamlessly within the community. This proposed development lacks compatibility with the character of the neighborhood and faces a number of technical issues which have not been addressed. Is there anything about your presentation tonight that you think might modify the planning board's summary statement concerning the project? I think that's the question.
Yes.
Okay.
So my name is Brian Levy, and I'm the attorney for Polymath Development. And with me tonight are the project architect, Andy Zaleski, the project owner and property owner, Pat Duffy, and project manager, Mike Boucher, project engineer, Cynthia Terreau, and that's the team. And what we have tonight was previously submitted to Betsy, which is a presentation on the design changes that we made to the homes. Since we were before you, I hope that's in your packets.
It's actually not, it was emailed today.
Is that going to be part of your presentation?
That is the presentation. That is the
Okay.
presentation. So just to put it in context,
Yeah.
since you last commented on that project, the Housing Partnership voted unanimously to recommend to the selectmen a 5-unit project, subject to resolving issues that were noted in your memorandum and others' municipal comments. And those really fall into 2 groups. One group is comments relating to utilities, infrastructure, and the project team has already started meeting with the town staff to work on those issues. Stormwater management, roads, things like that. And the second big piece is the design component. Because of the housing partnership, the public had comments on the objections to the style of the homes. The Weston Historical Commission had objections to the style of the homes. So we promised the partnership that we would come back and discuss with you, and hopefully, the hope for this evening is that we will get comments from you, which will help guide us as we go to redesign the homes. So if that's sufficient, I would turn it over to our architect who can show you the alternative.
Well, just for clarification,
Yes.
what you're proposing to do is to limit your discussion tonight to the architectural design of the homes. You're not proposing any changes in the site plan. Is that correct from what what the planning board saw initially?
There will be lots of changes, but those are all being
But
discussed
not yet.
now.
No,
Yeah,
no,
those
no.
are being discussed at the staff level with,
Yeah.
there was a meeting with Betsy, the health agent, and the town engineer to get into all of those, sort of detailed issues, infrastructure, roadway. So those are all, as they must be, they have to be resolved. But when we talked to the housing partnership, we felt that it would be best to start with the planning board to get input on the design of the homes. And that's why we're here.
So that's all you want, just input
Correct.
on the design of the home?
Yes, that's
So
what
we're mid-project, actually, we're not even mid-project, we're sort of beginning.
we're at the very beginning
The
stages.
very beginning,
There are
okay.
4
So
different
this
steps.
is really just an initial review of architecture, is that what
Correct.
you're saying?
And we're looking for your input. So with that,
But
Then,
we're not, based on what you're telling me, I don't see anything in what you said that would alter our initial memorandum.
I don't know how to answer that because you haven't seen the revised.
Well, the
design.
elevations, we're looking at elevations.
Correct.
Yeah,
and site plan,
no, that hasn't changed, it's just the
well,
elevations.
no, he said it might change.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. So we won't see any of that.
We won't see any of
Right,
it,
so
we're
we
just
really
looking at
can't-
elevations.
We're just reviewing, there's nothing we can make a decision on or a recommendation or anything.
Well, look, we wrote a
Yeah,
memorandum.
Right, I saw it, I see it right
Well,
there.
what would change our position relative to the memorandum?
I can't see anything.
Maybe, the house designs could be an improvement over what was initially there, but to be frank, I mean, I'm taking up all the air here, but we're not allowed to address this apparently, but the 900-pound gorilla is the density of the development. That drives all the other concerns that the planning board has. So if we can't address the density, because it's apparently been approved by the committee and authority, the housing partnership, there's nothing we can do to change any of our concerns about the rest of the site planning on the project. So that's the conundrum that we have.
The question is whether the board would be willing to listen to our presentation and comment on it.
We can comment on the architecture, but I'm telling you up front, I don't think we're gonna change the language of our memorandum, so at least not the initial statement.
Would it be useful if we work off of the memo that we sent to you, there are 11 points, and then if maybe you go through each of those 11 points to talk about where that's changed and where it hasn't?
It hasn't.
But many of
some
them
of
are
these-
unchanged, it's only the
Right,
aesthetic quality.
I understand, some will be unchanged, but some will be, but
Oh, yeah.
at least we'll all be on the same page then. Would that be a good structure?
What I heard, David, is that there are no changes other than the architectural design from what we initially looked at.
We have nothing else to show you tonight because all of the other items, or almost all the other items that are in your memo are things that the staff is looking at. So you commented on the stormwater management system. So the town engineer and our engineer have met and they're discussing it.
I
So
understand.
that's nothing that
Would you have any questions about any of those?
No, not at this time because we're still going back and
No, I
forth with
meant
staff.
questions from us. Like, would you have any questions and look for answers from us or guidance from us? Not that we have authority to, force you into anything or anything like that, but you're seeking advice, I think.
Yes, and primarily at this
On the
point
elevations.
tonight, we're hoping to get started with you on comments on the elevations.
Right.
Because we're just starting with the comments, all the other comments you made largely relate to infrastructure and the details of the project. And we are working on those now already with other staff people in the town.
Will you then be coming back to us with those ideas for our input or not?
Depends
I'm
on,
not sure.
depends on whether we're asked to, David.
Well, that's what
If
I'm
the
asking them
staff-
whether they would, because that also provides a forum for the public and a public hearing.
I understand what you're saying. For example, stormwater management, okay? That's something which the town engineer and our engineer are going to sharpen their pencils and do their homework and make a plan that works, okay? There's little reason to bring that to the planning board because the town engineer is is representing the town in that discussion. So the question is whether this board would be willing to represent the town in the discussion regarding the aesthetics of the project.
We do have our own engineer who provides us with input on
Different
projects.
process.
So
So it's a
maybe-
different process, but
Yeah.
it's additional eyes on
Right.
problems.
So maybe I need to back up and explain that this is the very beginning of the 40B process.
Yeah.
And that when you go next, you'll have to go in front of the board of selectmen. And unless the selectmen endorse the project, okay, it stops right there. If they say, no, we won't endorse it, that's the end of the LIP, Local Initiative 40B, and then we go on a different track with the 40B. And we're sort of done walking down that path.
The
with
friendly
town
40B versus the,
versus what I would call the normal 40B,
or,
whatever. So.
that's a good way of putting it, a
So
very
the-
positive way.
If we get an endorsement from the selectmen, or if at some point we get what's called a site eligibility letter, we'll have to go in front of the zoning board of appeals as the permit grant authority. And that's the point where the town would hire a peer reviewer to look over what the staff has done if they feel it's necessary. So to do it again at this level, it's very early days, it's really not necessary. So we're gonna have to cross all of those bridges, and we will. We're just hoping at this point, because there's so many comments regarding aesthetics of the project, that this board, which works on that issue all the time on many of its applications, we could get the benefit of your input.
So we're just looking at elevations. Who's doing the presentation on the
Mr.
elevations?
Solicitor.
Go ahead, sir.
Do you intend to entertain a motion from the floor?
When they're finished with their
Well,
presentation,
it's about their presentation.
it's about the presentation.
Yeah.
Do you know what it
I mean,
is?
They have told
Could
us
I
that they
have
are
your
not
name?
going to respond to the memo that you wrote in full. And they told us they just are not prepared to do that yet. So why don't we adjourn this meeting and call another meeting when they are prepared on a point-by-point basis to respond to your concerns expressed in that memo about this operation.
I need his name and
Jim,
address.
could you state your name and address for the record, Jim?
James Ullman, 52 Spruce Hill Road.
And you're in a butter.
Not exactly, but I'm a neighbor.
Well, we've been asked by the Housing Partnership to review what they're prepared to present to us. And we've accepted the invitation that the partnership made to us. If all they're going to present is elevations, we'll make comments on the elevations. But as I was trying to get across, I don't anticipate that the presentation tonight will change the planning board's position relative to its summary statement.
So we could expect the planning board to issue another memorandum saying that the discussion took place only about the elevation and that most of your points are still unanswered.
Yeah, that's going to be the
So why are we wasting our
upshot.
time?
Because the partnership, you don't have to.
No, I'm not going.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I know.
But the partnership asked us to do this, and we're going to accept the invitation and listen to their presentation.
Okay, yeah, certainly. is-
Please, go ahead, sir.
All right, can we turn on the projector now? Does that just go right on the wall?
Supposed to.
Yeah, did you hit?
I have no idea how to do this. The control right here?
Yeah. One of them says,
That says on.
that's it, it's on. It'll just take a second to pop on. I believe. Yep. There it is.
signal. Let's try again. Ah, wait a minute. I see problem. I was plugged in. There we go, look at that. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, my name's Andrew Zaleski. I'm the president of the MZO Architectural Group in Stoneham. We have prepared, this was the original concept that we presented to the Housing Partnership. It shows the 5 houses, shows it accurately. This was constructed from the engineering plans and from the architectural plans, so it is accurate to scale. Our original concept was to do, I took a lot of abuse at the last meeting for using the word cottage style, but I'm using it in the English sense, where the bedrooms are up under the roof and we have a low plate line. The reason we're doing that, obviously this is a higher density development. It keeps the shadow lines as short as possible as the sun moves about the sky. Keeps the low eave line all the way around the houses. So that was really, we liked the style and we liked the marketability of it, and we also liked the fact that it had what we felt was the least impact on any of the neighboring properties. There were a lot of comments that the style was not good, but there weren't any comments of what might be good. So what I have done is taken our basic house plan. I've actually taken house number 1, which is the one at the lower right, and offered some sketches of some potential. Oh, it's not working. It was working a minute ago. There we go. And that's backwards. Okay. That's better. Okay. This is what I called style A, just because of the lack of any other names. It takes a little bit more of a colonial style, and not so much a hip roof. It still keeps all of these, except for the final one, keep that cottage concept. It's not going to work with this. Okay, a little closer to it. There we go. What I've looked at right here, this is 263 North Avenue. This is the house that's just to the east of our site. What I found was it shows a major element, in this case a gambrel style, and a wing with the dormers. So it mixes the elements. It has a roof line that's not just one big solid roof line. It doesn't have the hip roof on all sides. It does have the face, the gambrel face. So with this particular house, I took that concept. I did a more modest entry, just a simple eyebrow over the entry. Again, similar to what you see at 263. Not a big porch, but a very nice, very beautiful entrance, but very modest in scope. Doesn't project way out from the house. Trying to look at our neighbors and look at the character of their homes. This was another style B in my nomenclature. I did a little bit more of an entry element here, a little bit more of a porch element. Borrowing from 251, which is a little bit farther up the road to the east, but it has a little bit stronger element. I'm not really trying to copy these houses. I'm just trying to take the kind of the character and the essence and use it in my design. I think again you can see that these houses are not overwhelmingly large. They have relatively small scale and small elements to reinforce that.
How many bedrooms do they have?
These houses have 3 bedrooms, I believe.
These two, the ones you're showing now?
Yes.
So that's 15 bedrooms?
5 houses? Yes. Okay, this is a little different style, again, changing the entry porch. I apologize that you're seeing stripes on there. That has something to do with the way the pixels work. These are not supposed to be candy striped houses. They are shingles and clapboards. It would be very much in keeping with the neighborhood. What I looked at here was a little different style of porch to give the house a little different character, but still keeping the main gable. Comparing it with the next house on 245 North Avenue, which does have the double dormers. Actually, some of the double dormer features were in the previous style, but what I'm trying to do is relate the features of these designs with the neighboring homes so that it wouldn't be a clash. It would be something that would blend in. Again, the wing with the dormers and the gables, the entry porch. This one does have a garage on the front, which we're generally trying to avoid, trying to keep the garages a little bit more tucked around the side or the back so that they're not as prominent. This was style D, which really centers the entrance right on the gable. This really borrows from the house immediately to the west, 273. It's running off the edge, but I think you can see, again, the very prominent gable on the front. Very similar in scale, the detailing on the windows. Some of these I've added a little bit of window caps to give it a little more punch, a little bit wider corner boards. You can see on this one I was putting a little bit more detail on the house. But again, trying to borrow from, that's our immediate abutter to the west there. So it's the dormered roof, the prominent gable toward the street, and the entrance centered on the gable. Then my style E, all of these are really the same house with different looks. This one really borrows from the next neighbor to the west, 277, which is a traditional two-story colonial style house. I think if we did this one toward the east, it would have the least amount of shadowing on the neighbors. It does give us a taller roof line, but again, these are not huge houses, so I think we can do something with a little bit taller roof line just to give it some variety. So what I'm trying to present is some different ways that we could approach these houses to give them different character. Our intent was never to have them all exactly the same, but certainly at this stage of the design, that was what we had. And that hasn't really changed. My cottage style, which is really comes from the Old English thatched roof idea, where the bedrooms were up in the roof. Traditional details, dormers, and really what we're proposing is the smart growth, where the land is utilized most efficiently, the small lots. And that really helps us do the affordable element of the project. And so that's where we started from, and what I'm offering is some other directions that we could explore, but I was hoping to get some feedback because, as I said, the feedback before was the architecture was bad, but it wasn't really much more detailed than that. So I'm trying to get a handle on what might be a good direction to go. So that's my presentation.
Thank you.
They all repainted white?
I'm sorry?
They all go repainted white?
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, this shows some little variation. I think we would do some subtle colors. I don't want to do all the same color. I'd like to see some variation in it.
What is your land area for this project?
No, we gotta get these people.
I know.
Sorry.
That's all right. If you all could just, before you make a comment, well, first of all, let me just say that usually at this point in the presentation, we ask for comments from the planning board, and then, but I think in this case, it's probably better if we solicit comments from the audience first, before the planning board makes its comments. If you could, before you make a comment or ask a question, if you just give your name so that Betsy can take it. An address.
Okay, my name is Judy Ullman, 52 Spruce Hill Road. I just wanted to ask, what is the actual land area in which this project is proposed? The amount of land that you have?
Yes.
1.5 acres, roughly.
Excuse me, I can't hear
Roughly
you.
1.5 acres.
1.5.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Peter Kirk at 263. What is going to be the land footprint of each of these houses? Because much of the property is a hill, I believe it's only, is a hill. And that rendering doesn't show any houses on the hill. So of the land that's going to be occupied by houses, how much is that?
Okay, I would say the rendering is accurate. It does indeed show the hill. The hill is toward the back of the property, so the houses at the deepest are to the hillside.
The back houses actually go into the hill.
Yeah.
I don't have the lot coverage number offhand, but the houses range in size from roughly 2,100 square feet to 2,700 square feet. Those are the initial proposals. Those are open for change.
The footprints are probably about 1,200 square feet each.
So you're probably going to use about an acre for these 5 houses.
Excuse me if I may, the new impervious area on the site is about 1/3 of an acre. So that includes the roads, the driveways, and the homes.
Okay.
And then the rest of it would be yard and the forest wooded area in the back.
Yeah, I just want to know how big is the wooded area in the back and how big is the, how big is the land that the houses will be on if you drew a rectangle?
It
around
takes
the
up
shed?
about 2/3 of the site.
Excuse me,
Right,
what
so
is
it's
your
about an
name?
acre.
Yeah, the coverage is about 1/3 of an acre total, buildings and pavement.
Yes.
Pat, C 254 Miriam Street. What are you proposing to do about the wetlands in the back? Where that last house is, at certain times of the year, there's almost a brook running through it.
So we've been told by the Conservation Commission that there are no wetlands on the site. So I believe what you're referring to are drainage issues. And those are things that our engineer is working with the town engineer to resolve those issues.
Anyone else?
Karen Kirk, 263 North Ave. Who is the town engineer here tonight?
He's not here, no.
Okay, I spoke with, are there two? Is there an engineer and an assistant engineer? And what are their names?
Gene Fogg is the town engineer and Rich Sweeney is the assistant.
Thanks.
Did you speak with Sweeney or Steve Fogg?
I have talked with both in the
Oh,
past, but
all right.
nothing.
You had a comment, sir?
Sure. Tony Flynn at 268 Marion. Just a detailed question on the rendering. Was the rendering also accurate with respect to the surrounding homes? That is, from that vantage point, can you not see any other surrounding homes? Or would homes be in that picture if you had included that in the context?
We did not include the homes in that rendering.
Okay. Would you have an estimate as to how many houses would be in that rendering had you included them?
I have no idea. Probably at some point we will. I mean,
Okay.
they're all shown on the site plan.
Yeah, I got it. Just curious.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that question. It wasn't done on purpose. We did render the new
Yeah, no,
product.
I'm just curious from a
Yes, sir.
Brian Johnson, 277 North Ave. I just wondered if you could get clarification regarding what the housing partnership's specific recommendation was. I know there's like a paragraph that was written and what they said that the planning board was responsible for reviewing. I was wondering if we could read that off.
I can. What I can read is the record of vote from the Housing Partnership. It says, at the public meeting on February 25th, 2015, the 5 members of the Weston Housing Partnership voted unanimously to support the proposal by Polymath Development, LLC, for the development of 5 home ownership, single-family housing units at 269 North Avenue, one of which will be affordable for approval by the Board of Selectmen as a local initiative petition, subject, however, to the following conditions. 1, resolution of the concerns raised by the planning board except for the number of housing units. 2, resolution of exterior design issues with appropriate town representatives, both to the reasonable mutual satisfaction of Polymath in the town.
Okay, so in tonight's meeting, you're not gonna reach a resolution from a planning board perspective, because we're only talking about one component of your issues with the plan.
Correct.
Okay.
I think that's right.
And timing of when the board of selectmen would likely meet regarding this project, do we know?
Betsy, do you know?
I have no idea.
So
We
it
don't
would be
know.
after you've gotten to the point where you approve it?
We don't approve it. We're
Or-
only offering comments. But this is, part of the issue is that we don't have any official authority here.
Right.
We're just advisory at this point to the Weston Housing Partnership, maybe at a later time to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Yes?
I'd like to ask about the septic. Considering that there is wetlands in the back, is this going to be a closed system, or is it going to be an open system?
I can answer. I'm not sure what you mean by a closed system. It would be a-
Closed system is they all go into one huge tank?
It's not gonna
and
be
it
that.
pumps constantly?
No, the system as proposed is designed as a conventional septic system, so it would be leaching trenches, well, collection into a tank and then leaching trenches, like anybody else's backyard system, most of Weston.
So 5 septic on 1 acre.
No, it will be one system for the community.
1 system for 5 houses.
Right.
How many bathrooms per house?
So the system's designed for 17 bedrooms. That's the way the regulations are written.
Sir?
I think the architect mentioned that he was looking for recommendations of kind of houses that they could look at. I think most of the houses on North Ave are actually historic homes, and these appear to be kind of modern interpretations of historic homes. I think Classic Colonial Homes and Connor Homes are 2 websites that I've seen that have historic-looking homes, and I think homes that are designed to look like they've been there for a long time would probably be more in keeping with the style of the homes along North Ave versus kind of what I see as a little bit more modern interpretations of what a colonial or cottage style house would look like.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from anyone in the audience? Yes, sir.
I think obviously, very good architect, and the planning board has done a lot of work with a lot of houses in town. I think that the one issue that's really not on the table, it won't be put on the table by Polymath, is the one that would prevent really probably any of those houses, or the best architect in the planning board doing his best work ever, from coming to a good solution, which is that there are going to be 5 of them, and you can't have 5 masterpieces that close to each other. It's not going to look good, no matter what they look like. So.
Right, and as I said at the beginning, the partnership has taken that discussion out of our hands, so density is something we can't address. Pardon me, getting over a flu. We can't address it here, but it is a concern that, this is a very dense proposal in what is a recognized historic neighborhood. It's a designated National Estate Register historic neighborhood, so it's a different kind of development, and will have an impact on the character of that neighborhood. Yes?
Thalia Price, 71 Arrowhead, Weston, Mass., member of the Housing Partnership. I was very glad to sit here and listen to a rather unfriendly attitude toward the Housing Partnership. All we wanted was to have the process of a dialogue continue. If the Housing Partnership had not said at their meeting and voted unanimously to let Polymath at least have the opportunity to appear before boards, we would have felt it would not, they could have said goodbye and stopped the lip process, started the, quote, not unfriendly, the alternative process for want. And that's not what this town should be about. Boards should be open and welcome to discussion, whether they think they can, whether they have any kind of right, as the planning board does not, to make a decision. But I think I have to say I'm very disappointed in the reception that the planning board has given to Polymath. They are at the very beginning. How can, if this town is going to come together to look at affordable housing, it needs to start at the beginning and have these kinds of discussions. Weston has become ripe for developers to come in secretly, just like something is happening on Concord Avenue, and saying, we want nothing to do with the town. At least Polymath has at least been open enough to take their knocks at all these meetings and try and work with the town. I think that is the most important thing that we can do in the democratic process.
Why did the partnership take density off the table?
Because Polymath said that that was not negotiable. All right, fine. That is not, it came from 8 down. But that would not stop the housing partnership from saying, all right, because of all the other issues that all the other town boards are going to have to deal with, it may come to a choice by Polymath to have to reduce the number of units. But that was not our decision to make, and that was not our door to close on a continuing discussion. If this, we would not be having this discussion tonight with all its positive and negative attitudes, unless the housing partnership said, let's see what happens in the process. And the planning board, all we expected from the planning board was to look at, what was it, elevation or architectural design. That's all I think anybody expected here tonight, but it's at least looking at something instead of closing the door.
Buzzy, a couple of things. First thing, nobody's hostile towards the housing partnership. We understand that you're looking skeptical.
I am looking skeptical. I probably wouldn't have said anything except the name of the housing partnership has come up, and I'm sure it will be in the records. I don't know how many times is the starting point for this issue. The selectmen said that that all LIP procedures, have to come before the housing partnership first. So we were the very first board that Polymath, quote, had to come to by a directive from the selectmen. So, having met with them a number of times, having seen their willingness to at least verbally talk, all right, not about the 5, but you never know what's going to happen. It may very well be because of all the other issues, the drainage, the septic, the whatever, that they will be forced either to reduce the square footage of the houses to make them smaller, or not go along and go through the state process.
The only point I was making about the partnership's decision was that you specifically said that the number of houses couldn't be discussed.
I don't know
No, it's
where
right
it
here in
says
the
it cannot
resolution.
be discussed. It said that we were not going to do anything about it. It was off the table. That doesn't mean it can't be discussed, and a lot of it will depend upon what the other boards in town.
But Buzzy, let me just read.
Go ahead.
I'm just reading the vote, the housing partnership vote. I'm not being hostile. I'm just trying to understand. The vote says resolution of the concern, the first task is resolution of the concerns raised by the planning board except for the number of housing units.
Right.
But the number of housing units is central to all of the other planning board's concerns.
I agree with you on that, but that doesn't mean that the planning board and all the other boards, because of their input, will change that or alter it. The housing partnership isn't going to say it's absolute. They have to do it with 5 houses or they're not going to do it because it's not economically feasible. It doesn't make any difference. The other boards and their input will show Polymath whether it's going to even be allowed. That's all.
Okay.
But to me, everything pivots on the density. quite
That's
frankly.
fine, so you discuss the density.
But we can't.
I mean, not you as the planning board. I'm not saying you. But you have great experience with architectural things.
No, we have experience with site planning.
Or site plan. All right, so are you thinking that there was no reason for Polymath to come before the planning board?
The building, the architecture is perhaps the least intensive thing that we review.
Right.
We review coordinated site plans. That's what we do on a weekly basis. But all of the issues with this project are connected to the density of the project. So essentially, 90% of what we typically do on a weekly basis is off the table. We can't talk about it. It's not a matter of being angry or hostile. We were proscribed from discussion of the thing that we do the most.
You're not proscribed. You can say right here that you do not believe that the density is appropriate for the 1.5 acres. Nobody prevents you from saying that.
Well, we did say that, but we can't talk it in detail about the various factors that play into the density issue, because it says resolution of the issues, the planning board issues, except for the density of the project.
But you can't resolve that. The planning board doesn't have the authority to say, am I correct that this is inappropriate density? Maybe does it?
We're making recommendations.
That's fine. That's exactly, thank you.
But we can't make recommendations.
Yes,
because we
you
can't
would
comment on
recommend
density.
that you don't feel that the density is appropriate for the 1.5 acres. That is the planning board's concern, is it not?
Yes.
Okay, so that is a recommendation.
Yes, it
Fine.
was our first recommendation.
That's
All
fine.
the other issues all the other concerns we have flow from that single basic issue.
All right, so what the process would be then, if Polymath never came before the planning board, never came before any other boards in town, but did go to the engineers, Board of Health, those boards, and got approval based on drainage and septic and all the things that they would have to do, and comply with all the state rules. Remember, the state has the final say in this. But isn't it worth at least an open discussion so everybody in this room knows what you're feeling? I think just knowing how strong you feel about the inappropriateness of the density is very important.
That's what we say in our memorandum.
But this is, memorandums are fine, but having an open discussion is even better. So for that point, Polymath now has a much better sense of who you are, where you're coming from, and in a process, everybody's opinion, people hear you, it should be heard. It's like an open forum.
Okay, well, thank you for the clarification. It's really appreciated. Yes.
Yes, Tricia C., 254 Miriam Street. I am the local historic preservation chairman of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and I have to tell you that on my own personal thing, that I consider this far prevents a project on historic and scenic road. The design of the houses, as far as I looked at them, looked fine to me. A little small perhaps, but it's just the whole big issue. And the thing is that the way the hill comes down, the dampness in the back, it's just too much. And it's far too dense.
Okay, thank you. Any other, yes?
When at the partnership meeting, the question came up about whether 4 or 5 was or wasn't economically viable. And I think the developer claimed that 4 wasn't economically viable. And then I think the question was asked, are there financial statements or are there pro forma statements that prove that out? And those were not available at the time, but that would be interesting to look at some point, is to really understand why 5 is so viable and 4 is not.
Yes.
Just a quick thing for the record. You learned before that the site of the house was in some historic district.
Yes.
According to my understanding, the house is not in a local historic district.
Not local.
And it's not in a national, it's not a national.
North
record, so
Avenue.
It's a North Avenue historic area. Yes.
Yeah, that's,
It's a national register.
it's a national state register district.
That's a filing that's made with the Mass Historic Commission.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I was 14 years the chairman of the historical commission. Anybody else? Good. Comments from the planning board?
Yeah, I wasn't here for the original presentation. But Buzzy raises a good point, all right, so maybe 5 is a lot. In fact, it's way too many. But what about the size of those buildings? 5 smaller, reduced footprint buildings might look better than 5 huge ones. And this is probably going to go ahead no matter what, so we have to work with it. But did you reduce the square footage?
The houses are relatively modest. I mean,
What
they're
is
just over
relatively modest?
2,000 square feet, which by Weston standards, those are.
Yeah, but we're not, this isn't Weston standards.
Well, I think
This
it's
is a
Weston.
40B. So, how big do they have to be? Can they have one-car garages? Can you decrease area?
Product.
I would think, yeah, you need to do a marketable
I
product.
mean, we're not doing 4,000-foot houses, we're doing 2,000-foot houses. I mean, they're pretty modest in size, but I think by
But
the
there's
other
always
ones are
room,
less.
isn't there? There's always room to move one way or the other on this. I mean, I understand you're really interested in maximizing, your profit. I get that.
In your presentation, you said that,
Yes.
that size was negotiable. You
Yes.
actually said that.
Yes, no, we can work on that.
Because it's a big coverage on that lot, and if if it does go up in the rear and there's drainage problems and everything's gonna be crowded into the front of it, 5 big houses, and I know you're right by Weston standards, anything under 10,000 is kind of tiny.
I'm not trying to be facetious, but I think they're pretty modest.
But
I
they
mean, I
could
do
be,
live in a
Well, they
1,300
would
foot
be
house, but I think.
they would be modest on a single lot, individual
Yeah.
houses.
Right.
But to have so many houses on a single lot
right.
Yes.
is not modest, I mean, ratio-wise. So that's, ratio-wise, it's a lot, so.
And you wanted us to comment on the design.
Yes,
You-
that's hopefully what-
I know,
what we
like, wow,
can
wouldn't
get
that be
some
fun to do?
feedback, yeah.
Of course, now it's been so long, I can't remember. But I think there were a couple that, I didn't think A was too good. What do you think? I'm not the taste police, so. I didn't like A with its sharp angles. B had the potential to be a little bit more cottage-like. And that's, yeah, B, I thought it was kind of cute. And I guess probably my favorite would have been C. And I was so sad that this was taken as an example house.
Well, those are the abutting homes.
I know, but there was
right?
one that was, and then D is kind of cute too, except it's got kind of all these fancy businesses going on. But but I think that's D is taken off of 273 North Ave, which is a sweet looking house. So, I don't know, anybody else care to weigh in
Thank
on
you.
this?
Those-
Because these
those
guys
are
are the
very- very
architects, so. Because obviously you wouldn't do the same house repeated 5 times, you try to.
That's correct. We're
Yeah,
trying to establish a little bit of a palette here where
Mhm.
we can give it some variety.
Mhm.
The
And
first-
each house wouldn't have to be at 2,000 square feet.
They
You
vary.
could have one house that could be a little bigger and then the others could be smaller. I mean, I
They do
think you
vary.
could distribute the space. To try and work with that lot, that tiny lot, 1.5 acres.
What's the acreage? The whole
1.5
pro-
acres.
1.5 acres,
But the houses would all be on one acre.
yeah. Yeah, the houses will all be crammed into one section, right close to the street, right.
I guess
so-
my feeling is that the direction is okay, but we have to get into the specifics of the design issues
Mhm.
as we went further into the project. What the suggestion is that there be a variety, and so we need to take a close look at how these houses fit together.
Mhm.
The ones on the hill, I would try to keep as low as
Mhm,
possible, because
right.
otherwise they're gonna loom.
Yeah, so you don't want your little classic colonial back on the
Yeah,
hill.
exactly.
You like that down in the front.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of these things we should do with the site plan, you'll finally come up
Right,
with.
exactly.
But then we'd be talking about the screening,
Right.
letters and all sorts of other
Right.
things that we normally talk about.
Right.
But
exactly.
getting away from the pure hip group into the gala, it sounds like you're getting some feelings that we're headed.
Yeah,
But I think the idea is you want to keep the massing of the houses as low as possible.
I do, for
So
our
therefore,
purposes,
cottage
yeah.
style, having the very low E, whether it's B or C, it's just
Mhm.
all kind of decoration at that point. But it's keeping the houses looking as small as possible, because I can't get past the density of it and how inappropriate it is compared to its surroundings. Just, they're so close to North Ave, and then after that, they're so close to each other.
They do match the setbacks to the adjacent homes. I disagree with that.
Well,
comment, but the
I don't know, have we
setbacks
seen
between
that?
the homes.
Have we seen the site
on the site
context?
plan.
No,
The
no.
site plan
because-
does show the adjacent home. Yeah, we did keep the setback.
Because I don't remember that, but just looking at that initial rendering that you did, it looked like they're very close to North Ave. But it's hard for me to get
Yeah.
past the density, because it's just, in another town, Winthrop or Newton or someplace, it would be fine, but in that particular area, it's just so wrong. So,
The other thing is there are big street maples, big sugar maples on the street, or at least there were from the Google map that Steve and I were looking at. Is that correct? Are there big mature sugar maples, like 2 or 3 of them on the road?
Don't worry about that.
There now.
There are 2 existing trees at the street. One
Yeah.
of them is dead.
Uh-huh.
The other one still alive, yes.
Are you gonna make,
There
are
2.
you trying to plan to say that those street trees,
No, but we'll be planting others.
what will you be planting?
Uh,
Like little ornamentals? No, street trees that.
We're planting street tree, the landscape plan that we presented shows street trees both along North Ave and then also up the drive, the common drive.
Mhm.
So I don't know, we haven't really determined species yet, but we have a landscape architect on the team. They just haven't really engaged yet. We want to get the site plan.
Well, because
Done
it speaks
first.
back to the size, footprints of the house,
Mhm.
in terms of having enough room to be able to shield and use your landscaping effectively, so that, what's there is not necessarily what's in people's faces.
do you know how many of the existing trees would be removed, or what percentage of the existing trees would be removed?
We haven't really done that analysis specifically.
Will any trees remain outside of the area up at the top?
It's hard.
Are you
it's
clear
hard
cutting
to
it
see.
at all?
Like it's a good-
There is regrading.
Yeah, 'cause you regrading.
So are you saying that the street tree, one of the large street trees that's still alive, you're expecting to lose?
Yes. Based on the current site plan, yes, that's correct.
That would not be good.
No scaling, they'll just be.
Yeah.
5 houses.
So you lose,
These are all our-
you
these
lose
are
a
all our
lot
original
doing
comments.
that, you know, in
Okay,
terms of
so,
scale.
but we-
We're going over the same things.
All right,
again.
well then,
The only,
probably done.
the only thing I would say is, with respect to the houses near the street, I agree with it, to try to keep the eave height low, but I would tend to make those more sort of classical and less sort of English cottage, you know, asymmetrical. So, like capes or something like that.
More American, less British.
Okay?
I am fighting one thing that I'm kind of my own worst enemy, is by making the roof lines low, it does spread the footprints. I mean, I could make them 3-story tall, make the footprints tiny, but I really didn't want to go that route. I would rather make the footprints a little bit bigger, but keep everything really low.
So again, that goes to the square footage. But I had a question, if you're gonna be keeping the front of the houses back, consistent with the other houses along the street.
Yes, we are.
And maybe you have I can't point it out on, you know, the map or anything, but you have a large street tree along there, why is that needed to be removed?
I'm not sure. What determined that?
The location of the new drive is, it had to move from where the existing entrance driveway was to accommodate
This one is
So how large a tree is it that you're going to be losing to accommodate the driveway, which can be designed, but, you know, may not be your first choice design, but.
we're certainly open to looking at it again. Just telling you what the plan shows right now.
Right, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't have that information.
So that would be
in
the
front
kind of
me.
thing we would encourage you to think about.
Okay.
Like, if this is a tree that's, you know, this big around, that's got a lot of value aesthetically, not just to everybody who drives on the street or walks on it, but to the people who are gonna live there.
Right.
So if you can work around that and preserve those, that is in everybody's interest.
It sounds like something we could take a good look at.
Yeah, I think the garage.
Troy, did you?
I don't think anything would be terribly helpful. I
They
mean,
wanna see the garages.
the
They
challenge
wanna
is
see
this
the
is such a
garages.
constrained site,
Yeah.
that it's so difficult to make it not look incredibly dense.
Okay, then, yes.
Diana Chaplin, 26 Loveling. Regarding the density and the cost, I didn't know if it would be possible, since, you know, you can do by law in some cases 4 units with 1 affordable, and if maybe we could keep the cost down for Polymath, and instead of making them spend so much during this process, they would be, maybe there's a number or an incentive that would help them reduce the density in exchange for not spending so much money during the permitting process to keep it all affordable, since that is the notion. Just a broader question, maybe not
Could be,
just for
Diana,
them.
but that's, again, that's not
Maybe
us,
that's-
that's the partnership and the selectmen.
So Buzzy, maybe you could take that.
I would be glad, we have less authority than the planning board.
Okay,
In
so you
terms
guys are
of
doing that.
influencing things, we're just kind of the conduit that conversations are brought forth. So, as I said, since the selectmen said that any development in town, new, existing, whatever, has to come through the planning board. Has to come through the housing partnership. And then it goes everywhere. So anybody's suggestions about anything, I think Polymath would be open to looking at. Good point.
Good. So you've gotten our feedback, we've made some comments on the elevations, and I guess I don't know what the next step is, but we will send our comments to the housing partnership and to the selectmen, and then continue from there.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Oh, one thing, just so when we look at projects, we also,
I don't know the answer to that. That's.
Stories, yeah.
make driveway standards, say, standards or trying to make these standards like obviously driveway widths are wide enough. Just turn around, all kinds of things. Just make that kind of a standard. It just shouldn't even exist. Well, maybe they're not. Here, because of that, we're going to talk about it. You're asking for trouble.
Just turn full speed in Polymath.
We're gonna bag it. You're wasting your time. You can tell the rest of them. We're gonna postpone it until fall town meeting maybe.
They're gonna postpone the driveway meeting until fall.
Would have been better to know early.
Would have been way better.
Once you start going that way, hate doing this or.
Yeah, it was nice to see what's going on with that. What else is
It's all oh, well, night-night.
Say it again.
We're still getting information in, so it's too soon to put on.
Well, thank you for all that work. It's hard. It's hard to I appreciate the effort.
And it seems too much cost for most. I don't know what people think or. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I've got one.
I look a little street, the railroad track. Oh, thank you. Warren Avenue. Is it what, was it Warren?
But you are right
Right,
here. It's right here.
Well, you go towards the railroad track, there's a road.
Right.
He's talking Conan.
I know, that little, when you go up, it's by the dog range, right
There
after
must
the
be,
dog
there
range.
must be 8 houses with the front porches and
And all the way
things.
to Victoria.
It's all
And this
Victorian.
little,
Yeah. But it's across.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's gorgeous.
I keep looking at that.
No, we're not. We're gonna bag it because we're getting more information.
Okay, night-night, thanks for coming.
Open the hearing and just close it and say we're gonna pick up the conversation later. Now we're gonna be on schedule.
Okay, so we're here.
We have extra time.
That's one counting.
Guys, I'll tell you something. Can I bug out after the driveway thing? Because I'm about to die. I'm sorry.
Keeper's house, and we did a great thing.
Yeah, that's
Ready to, we have another meeting.
Thank you. Okay. 9:90.